Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday evening Ask the Doc call. My name is Lynn Matthews, and it is always such a pleasure to be here with you talking about a revolutionary way to approach our health and vitality. We spend so much time working on the symptoms, right? That oftentimes we never get to the root of the problem, so we're just continually chasing things. Redox is changing all of that. And if that's a new term for you, you are in wonderful company. It was for your friend who invited you. It was for myself, Dr. Hoffman, until someone told us about it as well. Just know that redox is the energy that powers all life. Nothing happens in your body without a redox reaction. It's the most incredible communication system, and it's designed to protect your healthy cells and then find or detect, repair, and replace any cells that are damaged literally anywhere in your body or your pet's body for that matter. And tonight we're going to explore not only what is redox, but why should you care? Why is it so profound, and what might this have to do with you and your vitality and your health? People look at this for a lot of reasons. You might be here because you have a health challenge, or maybe someone you care about has a health challenge, and you're wondering if this could be the missing link or part of the solution. Others come because they like to be proactive with their health, nip things in the bud before they can be labeled something by a healthcare practitioner. And still others are looking at it because they've heard maybe there is some kind of athletic benefit, which there is. All of us, though, whether we're athletes or not, could use more endurance, faster recovery, more mental acuity. And even though we do have athletes at very, very high levels using this, all of us can benefit from those athletic benefits. And Dr. Hoffman will talk about that a little more later. And then there's the anti-aging aspect of redox. We're all one day older than we were yesterday, and there's really no way that we ever knew of in the past to turn back the clock. But what if there was a way to dial things back with this thing called redox? Not just the physical signs of aging that we see in the mirror, but even on the inside. Oftentimes Dr. Hoffman reminds us that the wrinkles on the outside are just a reflection of the wrinkles and the oxidative stress on the inside. So we're going to explore that because that's a pretty cool benefit. It's a side benefit, I think, the anti-aging. I think the most important thing is health. And then the other reason, which we don't get into on Tuesday nights, is when you have a breakthrough of this magnitude that literally impacts every person on the planet, there is an opportunity to really make a difference in the world, whether it's just the few people in your life and in your circle, or whether you want to make a big impact around the world. And if that's something that resonates with you, ask the friend that invited you, and they can tell you more about that. Or you can join us on Saturday mornings on this same Zoom when one of Dr. Hoffman's colleagues, Dr. David Silverman, he at 10:30 East Coast time, talks a little bit about best usage for the product. And then at the top of the hour at 11 o'clock, we switch over and talk about what is it like to do this as a business? What is it like to be part of this amazing group of people, educating people on this around the world and truly making a difference? So right now, though, we're going to get into the Ask the Doc call. It's called Ask the Doc because we want you to get your questions answered. So while Dr. Hoffman is going through her presentation, if you have any questions, just put those in the chat. Just know, especially if you're new, that because the company did not choose to go down a drug route for this technology, we cannot address disease names and condition names. We're just not allowed. It's not legal. So if you put those in there, Dr. Hoffman will do her best to address it in ways that we can address it. So just know she's not trying to avoid your question in any way. We just have to be very compliant because this is an amazing technology and we want to be able to access it forever. We don't want to be in trouble with the FDA. However, that said, I really am excited always to be here with a dear friend and colleague, Dr. Carolyn Hoffman. She is a board certified traditional naturopath in Charlottesville, Virginia. She's been in that field for over 23 years. And so she brings a lot of knowledge from her professional background to these calls. But in addition to that, she is on the medical professional board for this company, ASEA. It's a volunteer position. But one of the things I love about her having that as her part of her background is that she gets to kind of pull back the curtain and see behind the scenes on this technology and these products. So she has a really unique perspective that she can bring to both the presentation and to how she answers the questions. So Carolyn, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thank you, Lynn. Apologies if we had some weird things going on there. I think I could hear you kind of a little confused by what was she saying on the screen. Let me replace the pin here and say welcome, everybody. We always appreciate your time. And we do enjoy sharing this, certainly from my perspective. It, as I frequently will say over the time that I've had the opportunity to use this technology, is that it is very much what I consider the single most influential technology that I've had the opportunity to play around with and watch what the body does when we rebuild our redox potential. It may not be something that you've heard of before, as Lynn mentioned. It certainly wasn't something I'd even heard of. And you'll probably find that most doctors, unless they've actually been graduated post 2008, and those are the ones that will actually have some familiarity with redox biology as a whole, anyone pre 2008 probably hasn't had any classes in their training on redox biology. It wasn't really a thing till much before that period. But sadly, very few of them are going to be familiar with the development of which is what we're going to talk about, the stabilization of these signaling molecules that are going on in our body all the time, but the capacity for us to be able to rebuild them on a daily basis. And I think the most exciting thing is really put ourselves in the driver's seat of our own health. So I'm going to share some screens with you here so that we can kind of just look and listen and learn, depending upon how you best take information in. I really want to talk about the fact that for me, as I started to really kind of begin to comprehend what I thought I had my hands on here back in 2017, is that I began to conjure this notion that maybe this was the missing link, especially, if you're like most of us. We come from an era in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s and beyond, and especially 80s and beyond, where we're very into the physical supplements, the vitamins, the minerals, maybe now CBD, maybe, exotic juices, hydrogen waters, all of those things. All things that can support the body for sure. But I kind of wonder whether this was different because it was the missing link in how cells communicate within themselves and between themselves. And I really came to realize as I've been working with it that it is really the foundation of where we need to begin. So the missing link to health, youth, and vitality that most people probably haven't heard of, as I mentioned. I want to actually just set the scene and realize that if you haven't heard of redox signaling, and if your doctor's never heard of redox signaling, it's not new. It's just new to us. And as things become more well known, we start to see more things about a topic, regardless of what it is. But in fact, the science of redox biology goes back to 1998 with the first Nobel Prize was awarded. And subsequent to that, there's been another 5 in this area. 26 years of annual world congresses where all of the scientists come from all over the world to Paris, France, to share the latest in where they're at with their studies. And here's just a kind of small example of universities worldwide that are looking at this because it is involved in everything to do with health and disease, and they're desperately trying to work out how to make a drug out of it. Well, we're not going to be talking about the drug piece, thank goodness. We're going to talk about the way that we can actually do something to help our own health in a way that's totally non-toxic. So just to show here that it really is the critical force behind everything that's going on for our health. Now, I'm sure we can kind of all agree that our health is everything. The moment we don't have it, lots of things fall apart in our life, but it's often really hidden in plain sight. I think we often take it for granted, and we really only think about health when we haven't got it, but that's not really where we should be thinking. But it does begin and end really at our cellular level. And the reason being is that our body is made up of 70 to 100 trillion cells, and that makes up every organ system in the human body. So cellular health, Or we could think of the opposite, cellular dis-ease is found within the cells of the human body. And we're really only aware of the shifts that are taking place below the surface, rather like that iceberg. And when that shift is out of balance enough, it begins to cause enough of a problem, symptoms appear, and then obviously damage has already taken place. And we often get a name for whatever that dis-ease is. But this is really where health and dis-ease begins. So the signals that are keeping guard, so to speak, on our health, or noting when we have damaged cells, is done through this thing called signaling carriers, which are redox signaling molecules. I think of this as the language of our cells. And if we think of redox signaling molecules rather like a Wi-Fi, because it is a network across the body, they are the invisible network that connects our cells together to talk to each other and communicate how to stay healthy and combat disease. So when everything is working really well, they help our body just do what we think of as normal, right? Repair damage, fight inflammation, and recover quickly and basically heal and get better. Now, where is this happening? These carriers, these signaling carriers, are actually found in the mitochondria inside every single cell. For those of us who remember what it is from high school biology or are familiar with mitochondria, they're rather like the little battery packs that every cell has, and they churn out the ATP, the energy that enables us to be alive as a human being. And in that process, they also produce these signaling mechanisms, these redox signaling messengers. Now, if we think about what life is like, right, imagine trying to run our general life with spotty Wi-Fi. Well, think about what that does when we translate that into the human body. I mean, obviously in life as a whole, when we don't have good Wi-Fi communication, especially with cell phones, communication gets messed up. Eventually, the whole system powers down if it's involved in our computers, but just everything kind of runs amok, and it's really not a good situation. Now, in the cells, pollution, processed foods, for example, poor sleep, and all the stresses that we experience with modern life basically scramble the Wi-Fi communication of our cells. And when this happens, what happens is our health and our capacity to heal on a regular basis and do it quickly begins to power down, and our cellular communication within the cells begins to go awry. So we have problems that are diseases. Now, if we add to that the fact that there is a natural loss of redox signaling production, and it actually begins in puberty. It's much earlier than we might think of aging. We probably consider aging as being, our 40s or our 50s or beyond, but it's actually, the clock is starting to tick in puberty. Our cells really can't make enough redox signaling molecules as we get older in order to maintain health. And so the result is this struggle, not only to maintain cellular health, but just our overall wellness. Now, until 2009, there was actually nothing we could do about this. It was just the way it was. We all recognize what it felt like to get older and see things begin to power down. But that moment is a really interesting point. In fact, a couple of years before that moment, this is where nature and pharmacy intersected. And this gentleman, Verdis Norton, is responsible for this groundbreaking moment of being able to take something that a company had been researching for 10 years in terms of a drug route and actually look at it differently and be able to say, there is something special in this. They don't really know what they've got yet, but we can turn it into something and do what was considered impossible. So he took this 10 years of research and created something that science said couldn't happen by stabilizing these signaling molecules outside the human body, so that it's a bioactive ability to rebuild something that our body's producing anyway, but just producing a lot less of. So these bioactive stabilized redox signaling molecules are not only non-toxic, which is unique in the supplement industry, and you might be saying, well, that's not true. I take organic supplements, but even organic supplements can still cause challenges with drugs. Sometimes we're allergic to components in them, even if they're really good supplements. And so we have something here that is non-toxic. It is a safe product that can literally impact every single cell in the human body in ways that vitamins and minerals and the other products cannot do, because those are things that have to be digested and broken down and delivered to cell function. This is something that the moment we consume it, the body knows and recognizes exactly what it is, and it knows how to put it into use instantly. And that what makes it very, very unique. The science was validated by Harvard, UCLA, University of Washington, and Indiana, and it was that research that convinced Verdis that it was worth it looking into, because I'm sure, like many of us, when we see the label of the ingredients that we begin with, which is salt and water, he was super skeptical that there could be anything of value that came from salt and water. If you want to know the full story, which we will talk about in terms of the ethos of this company, go to discoverredox.com and have a look at the Genesis story. Now, in 2009, coming to the market, this is the world's first and only cell signaling supplement. We're actually still, to this day, the only company that has found how to stabilize redox signaling molecules. But it created a whole new category within the supplement industry worldwide. And we are categorized very differently in different countries because nobody really knows what to do with redox. It doesn't fit into the normal categories of consumer supplements. We have 7 patents, over 1,000 trade secrets, and from our Utah FDA facility, it is shipped directly to consumers all over the world in 37 countries. How do we know that what we're getting is actually redox? Well, we have all of our batches are independently verified by 2 specialists, sites around the world in Spain and in Germany, who are redox specialists, and they validate and test independently that what we have in there is not salt and water, but is redox signaling molecules. So we can guarantee that what we're purchasing is what we actually get. So for the last 15 years, Acera has been making products, excuse me, that contain the same redox signaling molecules that your own body is making. We're making them as we speak, but as I said, we just don't make as many as we used to when we were younger. So what that does is that they can support our cellular communication, which basically helps our body achieve balance, which is essential for health, and sustain that health and wellness that we want. In fact, there is a groundbreaking study in 2016, which was published in the Free Radical Biology of Medicine, and it confirmed that they know that redox changes with age, which we've already established, that it is literally essential for homeostasis, technical word for health and balance. Right? And when redox signaling is disrupted, in other words, it slows down with aging, not only does that happen, but healing slows. And as a result of it, the more out of balance we are, the more diseases we have. That study made it really common sense to me that this is just as important as the water we drink, the food we consume, the sleep we get, the air we breathe, and the exercise we do, all of the things that we do to support our health in staying healthy as we age. So it's kind of common sense. So redox signaling molecules are basically the master switch, and they activate what we could think of as the whole keyboard of health. In other words, every cell is going to be empowered, upregulated, increased in its activity when we consume additional redox on a daily basis. And the cool piece of that means that this is a broad spectrum way of communicating with the body. You might come to health thinking about really specific things. And that's what makes this unique, because now instead of just dialing into one challenge that we might help, we know that we are actually going to directly support every cell in the human body and therefore every organ system. I think this is a really important study because it shows us the power of what redox does when we consume it on a regular basis. This is an 8-week double-blind placebo-controlled genetic study that was done on our product. Over 8 weeks, we had healthy 35-year-olds who, incidentally, their genetic pathways were already beginning to switch off pre the test. And they took 8 ounces of ASEA Redox for 8 weeks. At the end of that 8-week study, they checked and tested again their genetic pathways, and 100% of them had had a 20 to 31% sustained and beneficial improvement in 5 genetic signaling pathways. That's a huge result, 100%. In other words, no one was an exception. It's interesting that our placebo, which was just plain saline, the same saline we use to become redox signaling molecules, had no impact whatsoever on genetic expression. But let's look at what that would mean for all of us, since none of us are going to be any different than those people in that study. Healthy immune system signaling, improving cardiovascular health, and supporting arterial elasticity. In other words, making sure that those veins and arteries are nice and flexible. Improving gut health and digestive enzyme production, modulating hormones and balancing, supporting vitality and wellness, supporting the body's ability to respond to external stressors. That means that we have a very resilient cell. So if we're in contact with viruses and bacteria, environmental toxins, all the things that can downregulate and impact our cells and our health, we want to have very resilient cells, stress-resilient cells that can immediately recognize when there's a threat and mount a defense to keep us healthy. And to also be able to maintain a healthy inflammatory response due to physical exercise. I sometimes think that that word physical exercise in that example there might make us think we have to be an athlete, which we don't, right? We are just alive. We are constantly in physical exercise as being a human being. And so as a result of that, we are all naturally creating more inflammatory oxidative stress within the human body. Just simply breathing will do that. So it's important that we can counteract that, because I think most people are very familiar with the fact that diseases create inflammation and inflammation creates disease. So we want to make sure we've got a good hold on that. So really for any of us, this is, key things that are so powerful as a way to know that we could consume this and we can directly impact and improve our genetic signaling in all of these major organ systems. I want to show you that when we say that it's broad spectrum, this is the kind of variety of things that we see. We can see things like breathing challenges that would improve after 20 years when someone gets on this. Being able to exercise and breathe is kind of important, but it really impedes your life when you can't. So being able to support someone and enable their body to get back to a better place of health so that they can become more athletically engaged in their life and still breathe would be very important. Being able to support the body and counteracting the challenges that we get with autoimmune issues, and being able to get back to having an active life, having energy, being able to focus, having good cognition, not hurting anymore. All of those things would be pretty important. Being able to support the body to address long-term skin issues that have been around and gradually watch the body reverse that process and solve the problem for itself. Being able to support the hormone pathway and that vitality and wellness, so that instead of losing tons and chunks of hair and having hormones that are all over the place, then we actually can get to a space where the doctors would look at the blood tests and say, you know what, we can actually take you off of your hormone medication because your body's working well on its own. Or maybe someone who, through an injury, was no longer being able to be as mobile and energetic in their life in retirement, and that their favorite hobby was actually to go skydiving in their 70s. And being able to see that reverse itself, and that the injury to their foot was to be overcome and be able to get back into participating in their life. I mention this because I want you to think about the fact that the redox product that we consume in terms of the liquid is, as I said, broad spectrum. And this is an example of what broad spectrum can look like. In other words, it's not about the thing, it's just about the cells. If we have healthy cells, we don't have challenges. But if we have challenges in those cells, then we're going to end up with something that has a name to it. 5 years of research of how we take that liquid and actually can put it into a topical gel resulted in Renew 28, again, broad spectrum. This is the most amazing product when it comes to skin support. Not only the anti-aging side of it, but being able to increase and kick over skin cell renewal. Our 28-day clinical study shows that we speed up skin cell renewal by 16% in 28 days. In other words, you're reversing the aging process and making the skin go back to looking like it used to when we were younger, and our skin cells would turn over much faster. So it also has huge impact when people have things that are cuts and bruises, anything where the body needs to repair that skin. And you can see here examples from that on changes with elasticity of the skin and wrinkles, the fine lines that come with aging, and maybe the irritation under the skin, being able to help the body calm that down. Now, our most exciting development, which is really only launched last week, is another 4-year project. It takes us a lot of time to be able to work out what to do with these molecules. They're high energy molecules that want to go to work immediately. And so some of our challenges is, how do we combine them with things that don't activate them until we can benefit from them? This took 5 years of working out that a silica clay was the thing that we could actually put together with the liquid. And you can see it's totally clear, and we can put it on the skin, and that's why we get all these beautiful anti-aging benefits. And for the last, where are we now, 10 years or so, we've been using this to help us with things like discomfort in ways where we would use more of it 3 times in 5 minutes in particular. And it was how I validated for myself with my clients that this product was worth having in my practice by asking them to give me feedback on doing the 3 times in 5 minutes. But now we have the next generation. So we're going here from broad spectrum, in other words, playing all the keys on the piano, supporting them to a better level of health and communication, to saying all the lights are on in the room, but sometimes we need to put the laser light on something very specific. And that genetic study was the thing that triggered us. We looked at something really specific in there, and we found there is ways for us to target and activate specific functions. So Redox Gold contains the redox signaling molecules, and this, instead of silica, is infused with molecular gold so that it helps us activate the redox in a way that can target specific communication pathways. And what it's going to help you and lots of us that are experiencing at the moment is 2 things. Relief from something that is uncomfortable, any kind of discomfort. Maybe range of motion might be an issue too, but not simply relief like you might get with icy hot or anything that has a cooling process to it, but the science of how we actually support the body to do the recovery as well in that challenge. And this is our beautiful blue bottle that is probably the most amazing product I've come across. If I thought this was quick, when I started practicing this on my clients and I saw things like level 8 hip discomfort go from an 8 to a 0 in under 5 minutes, that I thought was mind-blowing. But when we get to this and we now laser focus how we use the power of redox on a specific inflammatory pathway, we're seeing things change sometimes in seconds. And let's go to this piece. So we're going to, let me just go back here. So we're now targeting redox communication by activating what we call that NRF2 inflammatory gene signaling pathway. If you remember, I mentioned inflammatory regulation. So now instead of just activating all of the keyboards, we're saying, you know what, this one is the one we want to activate because we really need to target this pathway to give relief and to support internal recovery. And that is that EGR1, this inflammatory gene signaling pathway. It's like a cascade. It affects all sorts of things, but this is where we spent our last 4 years targeting here on pathway number 4. Why is that? Because this is where our body is naturally designed to produce what I think of as the equivalent of the smoke detector and the sprinkler system inside a cell. Our internal antioxidants, glutathione, are the way in which our body helps naturally combat inflammatory challenges or oxidative stress. And now we know how to actually upregulate this and target it so that we can do some amazing things to help us. And the University of Bath in England has been researching for us and helped us produce this. And they looked at the fact that we could elevate the production of NRF2 by 160%. So looking at our baseline of how cells produce glutathione, with the production of and use of the Redox Gold, we now have a 160% increase in producing natural antioxidants within the cell. They then took another study and they looked at glutathione. I mentioned glutathione, that's our master antioxidant. And they looked at a healthy cell and its baseline production of glutathione. And when we added the Redox Gold, it increased that production by 70%. But then to study things, they said, you know what, let's take a normal healthy cell, let's actually compromise it so that it's not capable of producing much glutathione at all. In fact, only 2% instead of 100% function here. And then when we added the Redox Gold to it, this had a 280% increase in glutathione. It basically brought that cell back up to 98% of its normal function. Those are staggering results. But it means that we can do this and put this on ourselves, and this is how we're helping ourselves do some amazing things. To look at the impact of oxidative stress, we can think of it in our own body as heat. Right? When our cells are out of control and we're not holding on to and keeping that oxidative stress and inflammation under control, we feel heat and it causes a lot of discomfort. And so to study the impact of just one application of the Redox Gold, we did some thermography studies, and here's just 3 of them. Right, this is actually somebody sitting, this is their knees and the front of their legs coming down here, and you can see anything that's yellow and orange and pink, or even the purple, means that the body is emanating a lot of heat. You can see it here on the hands. After one application and then using the clinical controls of waiting 15 minutes so that we eliminate any false positives by any false cooling process, we repeated this thermography and you can see how much cooling went on with just one application of the Redox Gold. And you can see the blue is way down here. The blue and black is as cool as it can get. And yet really this whole area was really up here. You can see that it's taken it all the way down to there. So we're getting massive improvement in the control of what we find uncomfortable and gives us a lot of discomfort. And then underneath it all, we are supporting the body to kickstart its own recovery process. Actually, 100% of the people that participated in this, and we've got dozens and dozens and dozens of slides that you can see, had this response. So it worked for everyone. Lynn mentioned athletes. Obviously, the athletes are really enjoying the Redox Gold because they have lots of things that are uncomfortable and hurt for them. But the reason why so many athletes use our products in particular, since 2009, these two products, but now adding in our third product here, is because our studies show that when we consume the Redox liquid, we get a 29% increase in endurance and performance, sharper mental acuity, much better precision and attention and focus on what they're doing. Those things are incredibly important for athletes when they're performing at this level, right? All they ever want to do is win. So they don't want to do anything that could draw down on that. So you've got to know that when an athlete at this level is using a product, that really is the gold stamp and seal of approval in what it can do for them. Well, think about what it can do for us. How would we function in our life if we have a 29% increase in endurance and faster recovery? Maybe there are things that you're beginning to think, well, maybe I might be able to do X in my life again. Perhaps I could take up pickleball when I have not been able to do that. Or maybe I can go hiking again and I've given that up, or play tennis or basketball. All the things that we kind of let go of as we get older because we don't have the amount of energy necessary, or it takes us too long to recover and we hurt too much for too long. And so we injure ourselves and it really inhibits our way of enjoying life. This is the most brilliant product, and again, totally safe. It has to be totally safe and totally compliant. Go to discoverredox.com. On the intro page, you'll click down and get to see our athletes. And if you scroll down and look for Sean Burke, you can click on there. It'll take you to all of the athletes using this product. And you can see the variety of experiences and why they think it's such an important part of their training and their success. We commit a lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars of money, toward research. Why is that? Because we created a field that no one's ever created, that still to this day nobody has managed to do what we've done because they can't reverse engineer what we have. And as a result of it, there is nobody else that could teach us about the power of this technology. So we've had to partner with outside facilities and put that product in their hand and get them to research and teach us about the power of what we have here. And here's a whole example of all the different studies that have been done and the things that help benefit our lives. And remember that we're in control of that when we decide to consume and rebuild our redox potential. So redox, targeted redox communication with the Redox Gold. I would encourage people, if you do get hold of this, not only get your own experience, but start doing what I'm doing here with the Redox Gold in the same way that I did with the Renew 28. I'm just finding out and putting it on lots of people who've got things that are uncomfortable. And we're measuring and testing and looking at the huge variety of responses. Some of them are breathtakingly fast, but remember, this is not an analgesic. It is simply targeting that inflammatory signaling pathway and helping support the body to get that communication going and be able to use the additional redox to control the level of discomfort. So we get the relief and the recovery. I would encourage you to get one of the sheets that we have, Test on 10, and go test it around. You know, build your own belief. That was what I had to do with this, because I was like, I don't know really too much. Let me see. Let me put it on my clients. Let them give me the feedback. Let them kind of prove to me if it was a valuable product. And it was really clear that it was. And I would encourage you to do that with this. And you can see some of the experiences that I've seen with people so far. So to compare them, because we have two topicals now, you can see on the left, the Redox Gold is really all about movement, overworked muscles, providing rapid relief, supporting flexibility, and its targeted application. And on the right, the Renew 28, whilst it will do all of those things, it really is targeted very much towards appearances of fine lines and wrinkles and cellulite, priming the skin to function. And again, remember, it is activating all the cells, so it's kind of waking everything up. And it's going to nourish skin cell surface and encourage that 28-day turnover. You can use this as an all-over application, and the Redox Gold very much targeted where we need some specific support. But this is a beautiful duo that is going to support each other. Now, our health is everything, and it really does start with the foundation of building on the inside with the liquid. We have a beautiful product pack called an Essentials Pack, where you get 6 ounces a day, and that is very much our clinical level. Most people are going to do really well on that. Sometimes, if you're younger, you might not need that much. You might need 4 ounces a day, and that might be your sweet spot. Or if you've got some hugely chronic health issues, you might have a much bigger deficiency, and you might need to drink more than that for a while your body rebuilds and does what it needs to do. But this is 6 ounces a day. It's our clinical quantity, and you get a free tube of the Renew 28, and it comes also with free shipping, which is a really great place to start as a regular amount to lead you on your health journey. Benchmark everything about your health. You might be coming because you want endurance and recovery, or maybe it's your skin, hair, and nails, or perhaps it's your digestion that's the issue. But benchmark everything, because when it's broad spectrum, you don't quite know what your body's going to do with this. Where's it going to direct it? Which part is it going to focus on first as its priority before you move on to something else? So you might find that you want your breathing to improve, but in fact your sleep improves faster. And maybe your mental acuity is the thing that changes quicker. Maybe your blood pressure takes 2 or 3 months to see an improvement, because it is going to direct it where it is important for your body. And that's why we say it is broad spectrum. So track everything from before you start. Do it at the end of the first week. If you're not seeing any kinds of changes, because our progress is going to be very unique, make sure that you double up and kind of rebuild the loss, and keep tracking and watch what your body's doing with it. Our studies do show that it cannot not work. That might sound strange, but the moment we consume it, these molecules are going to work even if we don't feel it. So we just have to wait to see what happens with our own health. Daily sufficiency, if you're kind of young and healthy, and you're just wanting to maintain your health, you're probably going to be good on 4 ounces a day. Most of us who are certainly 40 and beyond are going to have a daily deficiency. We want to rebuild that before the loss becomes too much and we end up promoting diseases. If we have a chronic deficiency, we're going to need to fill this glass up with more until it can sustain that level of health. But if we've got a serious deficiency, play around with it. There is this non-toxic. You can drink a whole bottle a day. Hopefully you don't need that. But that's the beauty of it. You can put yourself in charge of how much you want to use and how well you want to feel. I want to just finish by showing you that when we recharge the cells from the inside and not just the outside, this is an exact example of what happens. And I love this because I have never seen someone who at 84 can get on this product and at 7 weeks look different, and at 87 look different, and at 91 look different. It is impossible. There is no other product I've ever worked with or that could do what this does, because they don't have redox in them, than that you could take somebody in their 80s, which is already, fairly well down the lifespan of life, and still go 7 years on and actually make them look at least 10 years younger than when they started. And that's because we're interrupting the breakdown of aging by rebuilding on a daily basis. Go to Redox Science if you're interested in the biology of redox and how it interacts with the human body. We've got other resources for you to hear people's experiences or read people's experiences, which I think is always really valuable. And we're going to move to Lynn, and she's going to pick up on the other side of it, that really interesting moment when Verdis gets involved with a big decision, which really controls where we're at in terms of our ethos. So let's pop over to Lynn. And where are we, Lynn? Let's grab you here.
Friends.
Spotlight you. And I'd like you to pick up what I always think of as just equally as important as the product.
I completely agree. And I know that this is a big reason you and I are still here doing this. You know, Vertus Norton, when he was able to obtain this technology, he hired a group of scientists. You know, they further stabilized it. He was looking at ways to bring this to market. He was a business guy. You know, he was the vice president of international strategy for a $32 billion company. He played in the Fortune 50 world. He consulted a lot of CEOs in that world. So he was known for his strategy. So this was a business play for him. And as he was looking for a way to kind of flip this, if you will, he started talking to different pharmaceutical companies because he thought at the time that was the best way to get this to market. And while he was having these conversations, he found 40 people, a focus group, and these were, you know, friends, family members, church members, people who had varying levels of health challenges. A handful of them, very, very significant, get your affairs in order health challenges. And they were able to get as much of this as they wanted. And when he checked back in with them after 2 months, he found that those people that had those life-threatening challenges seemed to be thriving. And everyone was doing better. They had actually started, those 40 people had turned into 120 people, and some of those people were shipping it to different countries because they were having such a great benefit from it. So that was happening. And in the meantime, one of the pharmaceutical companies flew their top scientists out and after looking at all his material, said, look, what you have, we want. You know, this is quite astounding. We're going to give you a really big check. However, everyone you have on this product, your focus group, you, your family, they're going to have to come off it. This is not going to be available to the public. And, you know, I don't know what any of us on this call would do. It was legacy money, tens and tens of millions of dollars. But he said, you know, there's 6 people on this who are still walking the earth, I think, because of this. He said, I can't take it away. Morally, ethically, I can't take it away from them. And the company said, well, if you want this check, you know, you have to walk away. And he turned it down. And at that moment, and he was 69 years old at the time, at that moment, he decided he was going to start a company to bring this to the world. He wanted this to be his legacy to humanity. And so he started looking at and researching different ways to bring it to market. You know, he had been in craft food, so he knew a lot of ways to bring things to market, but he knew that this was so unique, it required education like we're doing tonight. He knew that the field of redox was a brand new field of health and science, and most lay people and even doctors, you know, wouldn't know what it is. So he settled on the distribution model of network marketing, right? Word of mouth marketing, people who have had experiences sharing it with other people and helping them get educated on it. But he also knew that he had a little bit of a challenge because that industry did not have a stellar reputation. So he wanted to be sure that ASEA within that industry would just raise the standards, right? Be completely transparent. Be sure that as a company, their ethos, their culture would always put people and purpose and principles above and before their own egos and the economics, that it wouldn't always be about profit like so many corporations. You know, it's all about the bottom line and your shareholders, right? This is a private company, so there are no shareholders who they are beholden to. And so there have been many, many times when they have made a decision that was best for the people, and forewent, if that's a word, the extra profits. And I think that, you know, if you look around the world now, there's so much corporate greed. It's just so refreshing to have a company that not only has a product that is life changing, but also a culture that really honors people. You know, it's not a transactional business. If that's what you're looking for, this is not it. This is about cultivating relationships with the people you meet and the people you care about. And then just finding out, is ASEA something that could help them in any way? You know, how can we serve them? And I think that if that, again, is something that resonates with you, we would love to have you out there helping us share this, because this is truly not only a remarkable product, as I said a moment ago, but just a remarkable company. The people behind it I think it's important to know who's behind it, whether you're just going to be a consumer of the products or whether you do want to join us and really help us get this out to the world. I think it's important to know that. And I know for Carolyn and I, that culture really makes a big, big difference. It's like an extended family. So Carolyn, I'm going to send it back over to you. I didn't see a whole lot of questions.
No, I didn't. Where are we? Let me bounce back on there. Yeah, no, I didn't see it a lot. Let me just stop the recording.